Hi there and welcome back to another Fat Boy Weight Loss video. My name is Aaron Day and today I'm going to be discussing a little bit about what tends to happen over the holiday period or what could happen, and then I'm going to give you some strategies on how you can best operate during this time where a lot of people end up gaining weight, and I want you to be able to feel really healthy about this, at least maintain your weight, if not lose weight throughout the period, and get through it without any guilt or without any disappointment. There's also all of the tactics that I'm talking about in this video are available for a free PDF down below. If you want to grab that, the link is in the description. And that's just really helpful. I just want to provide that to you because I know that this time of the year can be really tricky, and I want to give you some tips and tricks to be able to work around that, but also give you some habits that you might be able to sustain moving forward too. So let's get into it. First up, there are a couple of different scenarios that might happen. So for instance, you may be going to a family Christmas thing, or maybe you're going to a work Christmas thing, or maybe you're doing New Year's Eve, or maybe you're doing something that's pre-Christmas that's for work, or maybe it's gatherings or an unplanned social event, or even stress, right? A lot of these events have something in common, is that you go into them thinking that you're going to be really, really good. You're going to stick to your ketogenic diet and you're only going to eat keto foods, and you get there, something happens and everything just falls off the wagon. You wake up the next day, you have no idea what happened, and then you feel really guilty, disappointed, and then that drives you to keep doing it again and again and again throughout the next day, week, month, year, and it's very hard to get back on track, right? So that's kind of the spiral that tends to happen, and that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is that there might be some trigger foods at these events where you know that I can't eat that because I know that I'll just eat all of them, right? And identifying some of those trigger foods for you can be a really helpful way, because you can put them in a category where you don't want to consume those without some rules and boundaries around them, because you know that you might have an uncontrolled reaction when you tend to lean on those foods. So there's two different options there. I'm going to be going through them, and there's more options in the PDF down below, so definitely go ahead and grab that one. But the first one is creating this food plan, right? And the food plan is a really interesting concept because, you think about the ketogenic diet and you go, well, I'm supposed to eat, protein and fat, and I'm just supposed to avoid all carbs except for like green leafy vegetables and things like that. And whilst that's great, and it's a pretty handy concept to be able to get, and it's pretty simple, right? What happens when you go to these events that may not have a keto option, or might have options that will cause you to step off the keto wagon to just try one wafer tiny little bit, right? So how do we build a food plan around that? Okay, so how this has worked for some of my other clients is that we've built a food plan for them that goes throughout the entire year. And this could be tracking keto, this could be tracking paleo, this could be tracking a bit of a balanced approach. I work with lots and lots of different clients, so it's not all strict keto. I definitely have some high carb clients there as well, and the same concept applies. If we are dealing with processed foods or combinations of fat and sugar, which are highly addictive, you want to put some boundaries around that, because you know that you will eat those uncontrollably and you'll wake up the next day just feeling like rubbish and want to restart again, right? So here is some ways that you can deal with that by building a food plan. So you want to identify some of those trigger foods and put them into a box. So write some of those foods down. This could be chocolate, it could be, I don't know, whatever. Those foods are going to be your trigger foods, and we'll keep them in that area, right? So write that down. The next part is that, okay, what are some foods that are really, really healthy for you? So this could be keto, this could be paleo, this could be, whatever it is, whatever's been working really well for you that you were able to stick to, you want to write some of those foods down in there, or even some categories or just some general ideas. So this could be keto, paleo, whatever. It could be vegan. If you are looking to do something like that, then, whatever's really healthy for you, put that in that column. The last column is talking about some conditionals around some of those trigger foods. You want to create some rules that apply to some of those trigger foods that help you navigate those foods without feeling like you've gone off the wagon, or without feeling the guilt, or without feeling the disappointment. And I'll get to a little bit why that's important in a second, but let's keep mapping this food plan out because I think that's important first. So within those conditional statements, we can say, all right, well, I know that chocolate is a trigger for me. And I know that if I get chocolate, I will eat the entire block. And, for some people, that's the case. And I know for me in the past, maybe it was eating one when everyone had gone to bed, or maybe there was, lots of other it doesn't have to be necessarily food. It could be like environmental factors that can be your triggers there. And so these conditions are based around those triggers. So for instance, if you have chocolate and you know that you're going to eat the entire block, then you say, okay, I can only eat chocolate if it's on a Sunday, when I'm catching up with my partner and we're going to the movies, and chocolate is just, I've paired chocolate and the movies together, and I just can't resist it. And I want to be able to enjoy my life, so I want to be able to do that on a monthly basis, right? So on one day of the calendar month, I'm going to have chocolate. That is going to be part of my meal food plan. And I've planned that out. I have 2 pieces and it's going to be of this variety. And when I go to the movies, I have those 2 pieces of chocolate. It's of that variety and I feel really good because the next day I'm able to get back on track because I've already planned that out. So those are some of those conditional statements that we can put around trigger food to say, okay, there's going to be, this type of food and this type of event that's happening. How can we plan that out so that we can still move in the right direction without sacrificing our goals? And you want to think about this food plan from a broader perspective a little bit as well and say, okay, am I still going to be able to move towards my goals, whether that's weight loss, whether that's maintenance, whether that's just better health, with that in mind? So if I have 2 pieces of chocolate, one on each calendar month, is that going to really hurt my progress? Not really. Maybe the entire block every single day probably will, but you kind of get the gist of that. So that's building a food plan. All of the details are in the PDF down below if you want to grab that and map that out for yourself. Now, the second part is that I want to talk a little bit about the food-driven guilt loop. Okay, so this is where I was talking about how we fall into this loop, ends up getting us to spin our wheels so that we don't have anywhere to go and we feel like a bit of a failure. So to start with, we might have some unplanned event or a social situation or Christmas or New Year's or a work party or whatever. And maybe you haven't done any research, you're not really sure, it was a last minute thing. And you go through that event, that causes you to eat something that's not keto, or maybe that's not on your food plan, or maybe that's not particularly healthy for you. That causes guilt and it causes disappointment because you go, well, now I've eaten that food. Now I feel really guilty or really disappointed in myself. I shouldn't have eaten that food. What is wrong with me? And that feeling and that disappointment and guilt drives you to do it again with the intended purpose that it's going to make everything better. Do you see this, how this loop kind of creates where you go, well, I've already eaten that food and I'm really disappointed about it. I may as well eat the entire thing, so let's go ham, right? And we get stuck in this loop that enables us to keep essentially binging on foods that we've restricted ourselves from. So that's the restriction mindset and the abundance mindset, and you kind of, going between those two. What we want to do instead is avoid all of the guilt and the disappointment. Because if you avoid the guilt and the disappointment, then you're much better able to get back on track because you don't feel guilty about what you've done. Now, the way to avoid guilt and disappointment is to plan the event beforehand, right? So if you plan to have Christmas and it's with your family and you're eating, all these different types of foods, and that to you is really important, then plan for it. Plan to have a diet break of a day or a week or even a couple of weeks where you can have the foods that come up in your life and without restriction, and you're not going to feel guilty and you're not going to feel disappointed in yourself about it because you've planned it, right? And you know that health is much bigger than just a month or 2 month period. It's a 6 month, 12 month, 18th month period where you are really locked into getting to the best shape or in the best health of your life. So planning an event isn't going to crash your entire strategy. It's going to give you the ability to get back on track because you are no longer feeling guilty and you're no longer feeling disappointed in yourself because you planned it, right? A lot of the times when I'm working with clients, we can plan out a maintenance week. And basically what that looks like is that you might have Christmas or New Year's over that week, and you might have a really awesome dinner planned with your family, and you're having dinner and you eat whatever you want. And you basically just, however it is, if you're usually eating low carb and you eat heaps of carbs, then you probably gain a couple of kilos just because of that water weight. And you have the week to sort of get back on track and bring that back down into maintenance so that you'll even your journey out. So you're starting at maybe 88 kilos and then you're finishing at 88 kilos. You're finishing that week. So you've gone up and then you've sort of dropped that weight back again. That's what a maintenance week kind of looks like. And that's how you would plan it around maybe Christmas or New Year's or even a work event. Now, the idea is that you still want to be progressing to your goals after Christmas and after New Year's. So just remember, it's It's all about planning it so that you avoid the guilt, so that you can get back on track. Instead of leaving it unplanned or going into an event, your hands over your eyes going, I don't know what's going to happen, I'm just going to wing it, and you end up feeling guilty and disappointed about yourself. So I hope that explanation has kind of helped. If you want more clarification or if you need a little bit more help with that, I'm more than happy to walk you through that. There is a link below to download the free PDF. Contains all the strategies that I've been talking about, and also contains a little video where I walk you through it as well. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments below. But I'd love to hear what you plan to do over the holiday period and how you're going to plan to not feel guilty and not feel like you're going to self-sabotage over that period as well. So good luck, and I'll speak to you very soon.